Welcome to Sports Storm, Episode 5, Mid-Summer Edition. It's been an eventful summer sports-wise, and this will be the first solo podcast, as trying to get panel members together over the summer has proved to be a bit of a challenge. So you're stuck with me as we cover, I guess, 5 main topics that have really hit the airwaves of news so far this summer. That's going to include the World Cup, Red Blacks home opener, the Blue Jays, the ESPYs, and finally a draft breakdown, an off-season breakdown of the Raptors. So let's start with talking about the World Cup. I was totally encompassed, I don't know if that's the right word, with the World Cup, that month of European football, of soccer as we know it. Now, of course, Germany won it all in an exciting finish in extra time. And not to toot my own horn, but if you listen to episode 4, you saw myself and Dane call Germany as the potential champions. So maybe I do know a little bit more than I give myself credit for, but we will let that one go. But tied for most goals in World Cup history, total goals. Now there was also most number of scoreless clean sheets. And I think soccer needs to do a better job to clean up diving, and maybe that's where you bring in instant replay to try to clean up some of those things, maybe some instant red cards if replay can come in. The thing with replay, we have the technology to get it right, but these replays, and you see it in baseball, you see it in basketball, they need to be almost instantaneous. These delays that we're getting to look at replays are taking way too long. So these replays need to be sped up. You know, you see the passion for European football, for soccer. You see everyone's ancestry kind of get played out in Canada, and cheering, supporting their nation or their homeland nation. I just can't imagine what it'd be like for Canada to have a team there participating. The latest FIFA rankings came out, and I believe we're down to 118. But if Canada was in a World Cup, how would our communities, our nation respond? And hopefully they could develop a tradition of, you know, packing restaurants, packing community centers, packing pubs. I often wonder what chants and songs Canadian fans would embrace for games where you see certain countries, they have all of these cultures, these chants, these slogans, and would Canada come up with some? It'd be very interesting. So Canada hasn't been in the World Cup since 1986. They didn't even score a goal there. So hopefully this is an opportunity for Canadian soccer to grow. And the CBC did an excellent job of broadcasting it. I loved their panel. John Herdman, head coach of our senior women's national team, is a fantastic analyst. And we can't forget that Canada is actually hosting the 2015 Women's World Cup. Games will be played in Ottawa. And again, this is a great opportunity to see some world-class soccer. Of course, Canadian women won bronze at the Olympics in 2012, so this is an opportunity for Canadian soccer to grow, to be put on a main stage. And anytime we have an opportunity to grow Canadian soccer, I think it's a great opportunity. Soccer and basketball continue to grow in our country. because of the cost involved. For soccer, you really just need cleats, a ball, shin pads. You're good to go. Unlike hockey and football, the costs seem to grow. So I think basketball and soccer and our national organizations that support these sports have a great opportunity for these sports to grow. But shout out to Germany. Unbelievable tournament, very dominant, very exciting, and the core is still quite young. Maybe we won't see the likes of Klotz and Schweinsteiger, best name in sports perhaps, but the core is still quite young, and I think they have an incredible opportunity. Also, I just still kind of on the fence about shootouts, or penalties, if you will. I've been as a soccer coach back in the day. I lost the penalty shootout in 2011, but then won in 2012. And seeing Argentina in the semis celebrate just that sprint in celebration with their team, it brought me back to winning UOFSA with a great group of guys 2 years ago, and that sprint towards our keeper was just something that just puts a smile on my face. Just the elation, the jubilation, the pile up, the celly. It was fantastic, and you see the elation, the emotion in Lionel Messi's face when they won the semifinal via penalties, and it just I guess took me on a road back, memory road, and yeah, I think as time passes, that win in 2012 pretty special. Speaking of special, I had the opportunity to take in the Ottawa Red Blacks CFL home opener yesterday, and what an atmosphere at TD Place. The crowd was totally electric and seemed to be totally buying into CFL football's return to Ottawa. In terms of a fan experience, they are definitely on the right track, and I think the appetite for CFL football in Canada, in Ottawa specifically, is there for the taking. And I don't know if the CFL can ever recreate a tailgate type atmosphere like the NFL, and maybe they do elsewhere in Saskatchewan and maybe in Edmonton or Calgary, but Ottawa was pretty close. Their pregame party with the Trews there and such, it was pretty special. And you had dignitaries. Prime Minister Harper was there, Commissioner Cohen was there, Tony Gabriel, Russ Jackson. There is a lot of history there, and an opportunity. And walking down the streets headed towards the game, you feel the energy in the glebe, and it was quite special. Now, I also think it helps that they won. They were able to beat the Argos. I believe the score was 18-17. Classic CFL game in terms of the importance of kicking. So I think some footballers would be turned off by that, but Ottawa's 6 field goals proved to be enough. And it's great for CFL football to be back. I think it does a great job of promoting football, of promoting the Valley. And you saw one of the promotional videos showed clips of the Red Blacks' visits to Renfrew and at RCI. So you saw some familiar faces on the big screen, which was pretty neat. Now, I think TD Place does have some work to do in terms of concession wait lines, maybe some in-game experience, just a few tweaks there, but these are growing pains. Maybe an extra screen, video screen on the opposite side would be a benefit too, but definitely a step in the right direction. A very affordable entertainment, And shout out to Mackay Leisure Pools and Spas in Petawawa for providing me with the opportunity to attend the first ever home game of the Ottawa Red Blacks. Let's turn to the Jays, and I don't know, I feel I've kind of jinxed the Jays somewhat, as I was preoccupied in the spring with NHL and NBA playoffs. I hadn't paid a lot of attention to the Jays, and the moment these playoffs go away and I start paying attention, they go on an incredible dip down the standings. So, as of July 20th, they stand 2 games above 500. I believe it's 3.5 as we speak, 3.5 games behind Baltimore, tied with the Yankees, I believe. So the Blue Jays have been frustrating, somewhat streaky. Now, and our legal analyst from SBS Law in Orangeville, Jason, he doesn't buy this argument, but if someone had told me that the Jays would be in and around the 500 mark at the All-Star break at the beginning of the season, I think I would take it. They are still within striking distance of a playoff spot. Toronto, and we saw this with the embrace of the Raptors playoff run, Toronto is just aching, waiting for a playoff run for their professional sports franchises. So to play meaningful games in September is, I think, the best thing that Jays fans could hope for. Jays have been decimated by injuries. To have regulars like Brett Lawrie, Adam Lind, Edwin Encarnacion, Brendan Morrow, all out due to injury. If they can hover around 500, be within 3 or 4 games of top spot in the East, when these guys do get healthy, I think, and I'm the eternal optimist, but I think they can make a push. Do they need to make a trade? Well, it's an interesting debate in and around baseball insiders that with the expanded wildcard playoff format, so many teams are within 5 games of a playoff spot that true buyers and sellers aren't clearly defined as we approach the non-waiver trade deadline at the end of the month. You hear names like Cliff Lee, Matt Kemp on the trade block. And does Toronto need something? Do they need to inject a spark into that lineup? And there's various glaring holes. You know, Toronto could always use a starting pitcher and maybe a middle infielder to solidify that lineup. You keep hearing the name of Chase Headley coming in. Juan Francisco just can't seem to hit a curveball. Munenori Kawasaki is actually playing quite well, and he's a bit of a cult hero in Toronto, but he's hitting around the 295, 296, so, you know, that's not bad. And then you got to think about, is the time to move Rasmus? Is it now? How long can you live off potential? And you know, I still like Rasmus. I like his swing. I like what he does in center field, but he hits like 225. Would you rather put a Anthony Gose there and live with the shortcomings that Gose has at the plate, and maybe flip Rasmus into another asset? Now the Jays do have some arms in AAA, and I hope they don't move those arms, and I hope they don't move Stroman. Many baseball insiders think that the Sanchez kid and Stroman and another name that slips my mind can be legitimate 1-2 starters in any rotation in the major leagues. So maybe we do have to be a little bit patient. You know, Anthony Gose, and to his credit, today's game in their win over Texas, he bunted twice, and I guess part of me is a National Leaguer at heart, but I like bunting for base hits. I like hit and run. And you know, even though I think maybe it's time for Rasmus to move on, he did bunt for a single today as well, and you know, played against the shift. That seemed to be a good decision. But the Jays, you know, it's been 20 years of hurt. I think Jays fans would really come out and support a team if they can play meaningful baseball in September. Usually, this past week is in the calendar year the most quiet in the sporting calendar as we take a break from Major League Baseball, and you see the Home Run Derby and the Midsummer Classic. ESPN has embraced this break to produce the ESPY Awards the day after the Midsummer Classic, and that's just brilliant, and has brought about an opportunity to celebrate some of the great achievements of character, if you will, in the sporting world. And I was really inspired. I didn't get to see all of the ESPYs, but the Arthur Ashe Courage Award was awarded to Michael Sam. And if you remember Michael Sam, he was the SEC Co-Defensive Player of the Year for Missouri. He came out as a gay player after his season completed and was eventually drafted by the St. Louis Rams, essentially being the first openly gay football player to be drafted. And so he won the Arthur Ashe Award. He was presented with that award from The Rock, which I also thought was pretty cool. But Michael Sam's story doesn't start and end with the, being openly gay. He persevered through such hardship growing up. And earlier today, I tweeted the backstory to Michael Sam and then his acceptance speech. So if you need a pick-me-up, if you need to be inspired, take a look at those two clips. Gives me chills, and just an indication of society progressing. And I really hope he makes the Rams roster. He is kind of a tweener, maybe undersized. Maybe down the road he is a perfect fit for the CFL. But Michael Sam is a true hero and pretty inspirational. And then the Jimmy V award for perseverance. It's 25 years? No, it must have been 20 years ago that Jimmy V made his infamous speech at the ESPYs about never giving up. And if you ever want to watch a 30 for 30 that will give you chills, whether you're a sports fan, a basketball fan, a fan of human victory, watch Jimmy V. Watch that story of the North Carolina State team and their march to the national championship. I think a lot of us can learn a lot from Jimmy V. And he says that each day we should laugh and cry and really live life to its fullest. Jimmy V had his critics. He was boisterous, maybe a little bit too animated, but he'll be remembered as one of the great characters of the game of basketball. And that's a ESPN 30 for 30 that I could watch over and over. Anyways, the award was given to Stuart Scott from ESPN, who's been battling cancer for 7 years. And he's such an inspiration. He gets treatment, he gets chemo treatment and whatever treatment he needs, but he continues to work out and continues to not lie down and keep fighting. And I was a big Stuart Scott fan as a broadcaster for years, but now a fan of Stuart Scott the man. An incredibly inspirational story about his fight against cancer. I also tweeted that. So again, feeling down or looking for some inspiration to get you through the dog days of summer, or to get you on that workout schedule or whatnot, check out those videos, and shout out to ESPN for all they do for the Jimmy V Foundation, and celebrating these victories not only in sports but in humanity. And finally, long-awaited Raptors talk. And like many of you, when the Raptors selected Bruno Caboclo, I was a little shocked. I had not heard that name before, and kind of sick of the media Fran Francella from ESPN talked about Bruno being 2 years away from being 2 years away, and being the Brazilian Kevin Durant. Well, the media has just run with these two phrases, and I'm a little sick of it, to be honest with you. I don't think Bruno's that far away. He has an incredible wingspan, something like 7'9", I believe. So if he can just come in as the 11th or 12th, or maybe the 13th man on the Raptor roster, and defend and knock down shots, maybe spend some time in the D-League to develop, the Raptors have the luxury. They have an abundance of wings already. They don't need him to produce exponentially next year. He can be a role player and develop. And I think this is a great pick. And now, it took me a while to warm up to this pick, but you see that through NBA Summer League that this guy can produce. Their second-round pick out of Connecticut, DeAndre Daniels, this guy, he has range, and I don't think the Raptors expected this kind of range. So he has maybe forced the Raptors' hand to maybe think about having him on their 15-man roster this year. Initially, they thought he'd play in Europe for the year, but if you look at last night's game in Summer League against the Clippers, he had 15 points, 14 boards, and he can knock down that corner three. So we might see some competition for roster spots come September, October. Love the John Salmons trade to Atlanta for Bebe and Lou Williams. I think having Bebe, and I can't pronounce his real name, he's a 7-footer who Masai Ujiri wanted out of Denver. He wanted to draft him last year, but he slipped to Atlanta. Now he spent the year in the EuroLeague, but is a 7-footer who can defend, who can block shots. And I think Bebe, whatever, and Bruno as two Brazilians, I really think that would help each of their acclimatization to NBA culture, to Canadian culture, tremendously if both were on the roster next year. Toronto is acquiring assets, and I think that's important if they need to. As they continue to grow, they're still a young team, and as Matt Devlin said, the Raptors were the only playoff team with two sophomores in their starting five, with JV and T. Ross. So they are still relatively young. Also in that trade, the Raptors got Lou Williams, who I think he can be like a microwave type player, instant offense, can heat up very quickly off the bench. He can play both guard spots, and he's willing to come off the bench. He's excited about coming to Toronto. I don't know if he's sixth man of the year award caliber, but he could add to that bench that could be one of the best in the NBA. You come with Vasquez, you come with Patrick Patterson, who both resigned this year. You come with Lou Williams now. You got Tyler Hansbrough, who could mix it up with anyone in the league. And then you got Chuck Hayes as a depth man. I like what the Raptors are doing. I like the signing of Kyle Lowry. I don't think it was as make or break as everyone else suggested, but how could you not resign Lowry? How could you not love him for what the heart and determination he brought last year? He led the league in charges taken. You have to have an incredible courage and desire to win if you're doing that. And many people celebrated this as the one time Toronto was able to retain one of their free agents. With winning, the free agents will come. And Lowry was a testament to this. Love the Patrick Patterson and Gravis Vasquez, two re-signings, two guys who came in the Sacramento trade who love Toronto and multi-dimensional players. Patterson is your typical stretch four, but can defend, can post up, can hit the three. Of course, he's a Kentucky guy, so you know he's got a high basketball IQ. And Vasquez, I just love his passion for the game. He can manufacture his own shot. He's got length. Maybe he's got some trouble defending and maybe creating for others, but he's got that multi-dimensional aspect of his game. Yeah, I do wish the Raptors were able to get Tyler Ennis. I guess the initial plan was to draft Ennis with the 20th pick before, and then take Caboclo with their second-round pick, but that wasn't going to happen as Ennis went 18th to Phoenix, and then there was talk that Caboclo was being sought after by a few other teams, that he wasn't going to be there by the time their second-round pick came about. Now, Phoenix has done some really interesting things as well. They've got 4 point guards on their roster with Bledsoe, Dragic. They just signed Isaiah Thomas and now Ennis. Now, Phoenix does have a lineup where they do play with 2 point guards, where they did the Dragic, Bledsoe backcourt, and they had a lot of success with that. And I think more teams can do that, can play with 2 point guards. So many people have been worried about, matchups on the defensive end, and the other teams could post one of their point guards. That's true, but if you continue to post up one of your players against a smaller player, how much success can you really have long term with that? Does it get the other team out of their offensive rhythm if they're continually just dumping it down to a post player who maybe isn't comfortable playing in the post? I think too often they worry about the defensive matchups, and playing 2 point guards, I think, is a very, very interesting idea. Now, the Nets were able to post Joe Johnson quite effectively against the Raptors, so that kind of contradicts my argument. But and I think too often we worry about positions and not just basketball players, and that's a little hypocritical for me. As some of you know, in my coaching style, I'm very much 1 through 5 kind of defining positions, but love to evolve my coaching style to just putting 5 guys out there, and 5 guys who can play multiple positions and run systems where it's interchangeable. I don't know if I can do that, but if you can run a system or certain simplified systems where everyone is interchangeable, I think you could do some damage. So that's something that my thinking is evolving to. Not sure where I sit about the LeBron signing. I think I respect the fact that he's going home to Cleveland. I love the fact that the Heat didn't retain him, because, as you know, I'm not a big Heat guy. I love the opportunity that presents itself with Tristan Thompson and Anthony Bennett and maybe Andrew Wiggins. You got to respect LeBron's game. I've been a LeBron critic, a bit of a hater for years after he left Cleveland, mostly for how he did it, and mostly for the fact that the previous generation of superstars like Jordan, like Magic, they never had to leave to get a ring. They stuck with it. And the whole way he left Cleveland left a bitter taste in my mouth. And I think he dives a little bit, but he shares the ball. He plays basketball the right way. So maybe I'll be warming up to LeBron as he's in Cleveland. Continued talk about whether the Cavs will keep Andrew Wiggins or whether they'll move him to Minnesota for Kevin Love. And I don't know what to think there. I just hope, as I forget who said this, ESPN analyst from Toronto, former ESPN analyst David Amber said, when LeBron said, "I'm coming home," we can only hope that in 4 years that Andrew Wiggins and Tyler Ennis, they someday tweet out, "I'm coming home," and that they'll come to the Raptors. But that's a number of years away. Very excited for the Raptor season. Very excited for RCI basketball season to get started. I know many people have been working hard and are getting ready for that season. That will conclude, I guess, the first ever solo Sports Storm. Hope to get some of the panel back, and we can have some healthy banter about our sporting world. Hope everyone is having a great summer. Hope everyone's safe. And thank you for following. Thank you for listening. Virtually Irrelevant Podcast. You can't teach that.